Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Philadelphia-born, Brooklyn-based jazz alto saxophonist Immanuel Wilkins. He opened up at length about his latest 2022 CD, The Seventh Hand. This is a follow-up to his acclaimed debut called Omega that was the New York Times Best Jazz Album of 2020. He grew up in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia. After he graduated high school, he moved to New York City in 2015 to attend the Juilliard School. From there, he would get swept up into the scene, and he's never looked back. Dig this story.
Hey, man, I've been a fan of yours for a while. I love The Seventh Hand, so thank you for taking a minute out. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, for real.
And you're up in Philadelphia, correct?
I'm in Brooklyn right now, but I've been pretty much back and forth between New York and Philly.
Okay, because I just interviewed a young musician today by the name of Micah Graves, and he talked about you quite a bit and what kind of an influence and loving your work. So
wow, that means a whole lot. Yeah, Mike is great.
Yeah, man, his album's great. It's just it's punchy. It comes right out at you.
Definitely, absolutely.
And your album as well, man. It's right there. It's ever present. And I find it interesting now with a lot of albums that have been coming out, obviously during everybody living through COVID. You know, how does it feel to have new material out, and what is this time meant for you creatively to get to where you're at?
I guess it's interesting because gigs are a little few and far between. So it's actually given the band a unique opportunity to we've been able to just rehearse more, which is really great. I don't know, just kind of time, spending more time with the music and with the band, just in a almost reclusive way, has actually proved to be pretty helpful to the music. We've been able to really just practice without an audience.
Well, and personally, it's been a time, I'm sure, of self-reflection, for all of us. What have you discovered about yourself that maybe you didn't realize before that's going to make you stronger as hopefully 2022 opens up and there's more live gigs?
Wow, yeah, that's interesting. I think I've found maybe a second wind of motivation during this time, which is kind of interesting. I guess in the beginning of the pandemic, March 2020, I didn't really have too much motivation. Like many other musicians that I talked to during that time, it was hard to really be creative. And I think I'm starting to hit this second stride of real motivation and kind of locking down and really making work and really practicing and working on my craft and refining my material. So that's definitely something I learned about myself, is just a sort of self-generated energy that I can tap into, or I need to tap into in order to grow,
And I guess that's the other part of this right now. It's probably hard to say just because these variants keep surprising us. Once we think things are okay, it closes back up. But I guess looking into 2022, are there any prospects, things that are going to be opening up for you with the new album out?
Yeah, I mean, we have there's a tour. We have a tour between the end of this week, Thursday, starting this Thursday. Where we do East Coast for about 2 or 3 days, and then West Coast in February, and then March we're out in Europe from basically the 1st of March to the 26th. So I don't know. It seems like things are looking up. Hopefully, and nothing's gotten canceled yet. So hopefully we can keep it going and get on the road. This is the first time we've ever toured, period, as a band. So it's exciting. It feels a long time coming.
Well, and it's going to be like a revival. And speaking of, the cover of this album, Seventh Hand, has the biblical and theological symbolism in it. Talk to me a little bit about how that came together.
The record is loosely around becoming a vessel, and this feeling that I had in the music where I felt like maybe I wasn't the one doing the work. There was a kind of space that I could channel or get into in moments where I was able to tap into maybe the deep subconscious, where the creativity that was kind of being put out felt like I was a vessel. And in my improvisations, it would become kind of a pursuit of nothingness for me, of kind of trying to empty out any sort of preconceived or front of mind ideas that I had, or preconceived notions about the music, and really just allow for, my body to be a channel, I guess. That kind of led me to think about, spirit possession or catching the Holy Spirit, the role that spirit possession kind of takes throughout all of the different spiritual practices of the African diaspora, whether that's the Black church or West African tradition or South African tradition. All these kind of deal with the drums as being central and the dance being central. And I think it's the same with jazz music and blues. So I was kind of interested in those things. And then the cover kind of came about in that same vein, thinking of like becoming a vessel, catching the Holy Spirit. That's synonymous with the term baptism of the Holy Spirit. And so I thought it would be cool to remix a Southern baptism that, they had those old photos in the 50s and 60s of baptisms in like Mississippi or Georgia or something. And I thought about doing something like that. And also kind of the significance of water is, I think central to spirituality. And then also, I think Black aesthetics, I think water covers a lot of different interesting territories.
So as we established up front, you're from Philadelphia. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how, kind of the flashpoint for jazz happened for you.
I started when I was 3 on the violin. My parents kind of put me on whatever instrument that I wanted to do, and kind of just anything, really. I wanted to be a firefighter, so, like, they would take me to the firehouse, or, like, I wanted to be a scientist. They'd take me to enroll me in science lessons and stuff. I had really supportive parents. Basically, I settled on violin, and then I moved to piano, both of which I was not very good at. And I tried singing. Also, I wasn't too good. And then the saxophone kind of came in the 3rd grade. I found out I could get into the band a year early if I had my own instrument. So I reached out to my parents, and begged them to get me a saxophone. They got it for me. I started playing. I wrote in the Clef Club. The Clef Club is like a big hub for the music in Philly. And it used to be a union house back in the day. It has an education program now, but back in like, the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was just a place for musicians to go hang out. It's really ingrained into the scene. And so I feel like I got that like kind of old school mentorship. We all kind of look at the past nostalgically about, I often talk to older musicians about what they feel like is missing in the scene now, and it's that kind of that old school mentorship of like just someone on the bandstand just helping you out or calling you on gigs. And I feel like I got a glimpse of that going to the Clef Club, and I give it all up to them. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
Who were some of your influences early on, musicians that you really looked up to kind of find your voice?
When I was super young, my first influence was Kenny Garrett. I feel like he was just really accessible to my young mind. He played cool stuff, and that was attractive to me. So Kenny was my first love, and then shortly after that, I got really into maybe the opposite end of the spectrum. So I was like super into like Ben Webster, Lester Young, Coleman Hawkins, Benny Carter was a big influence of mine. So yeah, I was really into like really older jazz music, and then some of the newer cats. And then once I got to college, I started to kind of find my voice within Ornette Coleman's music, Henry Threadgill's music, and Charlie Parker, John Coltrane. Those were like profound influences for me.
What about your first live jazz show? What was that really blew you away?
Wow, my first live jazz show. I don't even know. I don't even remember. What? Man, okay. I can talk about some jazz shows I saw when I was young. I don't remember what the first one was, but I went to go see the Keith Jarrett Trio at the Kimmel Center. That was pretty crazy to me. I loved it. That, it was a standards trio with Jack and Gary Peacock. I remember they did maybe 8 encores. It was insane. So they literally played for about 3 or 4 hours. It was it was pretty wild. That one was pretty profound for me. I saw the Wayne Shorter Quartet when I was pretty young, and that was also great. I've seen the Wayne Quartet a fair amount of times, but I remember that first time. Both concerts were at the Kimmel Center. That first time was pretty amazing because I wasn't prepared. I had no idea what that band sounded like with Danilo and and Brian Blade, and John Petitucci. I hadn't heard them before that gig, so it was like such a crazy experience to hear that for the first time.
You know, you've in your career up to this point, you've had the chance to really be around some heavy hitters in jazz. What have you learned from kind of the veterans and luminaries in this craft that you in turn use to teach younger players you get around that look up to you?
Yeah, that's really interesting. A lot of it is stories, and I find as I get older, I start to find the importance of storytelling and creating this kind of generational memory that kind of passes down throughout the music. And I remember, a fair amount of the older musicians would tell me the same stories maybe, 10 times, 10 times a week maybe, like very often. And I remember, thinking to myself, man, like, why do they keep telling me the same story? Like, they told me this already. And then I started to, maybe think of it not as maybe their mind is going, but actually maybe this is an intentional effort to create some sort of generational memory of these stories and really pass down the culture of the music, which kind of gives birth to these intangible aspects in the playing that can't be accessed through any amount of study. It only can be accessed through a certain depth of feeling through the music and a depth of, personality and, human love and respect for people. And I think that beautiful kind of, that beautiful personality that they had, I think that above anything is something that I try to really, bring when I'm talking to other people, because that's kind of I think the personhood is really what makes this thing so special, this music so special.
Speaking of special, you're in a rather special profession, being a musician. What's the greatest part about being a professional musician for you? What do you look forward to the most?
Being a professional musician, I mean, just playing for audiences. I love the feeling of a packed house. I often talk about, and especially with regards to what I missed during the pandemic, I often talk about the feeling of like that energy transfers of maybe like 200 people or 300 people packed into a tight room, all kind of projecting their energy on like 3 or 4 people on the bandstand. I think that is like such a cool feeling in the room. There's a vibe of just spaces of rooms when people are in it. You can feel that on the bandstand. I think that's really my favorite part of playing is the whole atmosphere of and kind of, that social aspect of performing the music and making people feel good or any of that.
Well, let's say we get off the phone right now. You're thinking about this answer, but in the meantime, a Jazz DeLorean pulls up and you can punch the digits. Go anywhere, see anybody in the realm of jazz. Who are you going to go see?
I'm going to see John Coltrane Quartet. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to see that Love Supreme in Seattle that just got released. That's where I'm getting back to. Nice. Without a doubt.
That, man, I'll tell you what, that is the number one answer every time. Coltrane is always on the top of everybody's list.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like that, like talk about a room and like a vibe of the room. Like I just wonder what it was like to be in that room, like when that was happening.
Man. Talk about a religious revival.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, quite simply put, you've dedicated yourself to an idiom we all love. Why do you love jazz?
I love jazz. It's my partner in crime, Joel Ross, often says it's all just about personal expression, and I think that's a great way of putting it. It also kind of is all-encompassing of this agency that it's a symbol. I feel like it's a symbol of a sort of self-determination and of a certain agency that it gives you. It's a beautiful music where you're able to make the music in the moment, and you're the creator. And always, you're always the creator. You're always creating new material, making new material, and nothing sounds the same twice. So yeah, jazz is deeply. I think it also has to do with just the way I grew up. The music I listened to in the house. It wasn't jazz, but it was other black music, and I find that. Kind of jazz gives me that freedom to just do what I want and play what I feel. And that freedom of expression is kind of paramount, you know.
So everyone has a perception of you, an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your fans. But ultimately, you live your life. You have a perception of yourself. Who do you think you are?
Man, you know, I think I'm just a nice guy just trying to write some music that I want to hear on my phone. I think as a musician, that's who I am. As a person, I'm just a nice guy. I'm a fun guy. I'd humbly think I'm pretty funny. You know, I think I got a, you know, fine head on my shoulders, I guess, you know. I'm just a curious fellow.
I like it, man. Hey, thank you for taking some time out for Neon Jazz today. Good luck with the new album and the return to the stage. I appreciate it.
Man, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Philadelphia, Brooklyn, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Immanuel for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store, or visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.